All right. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to God is Breath, Part 1, Year 1. Um, we will do some more proper welcomes and proper introductions in a moment, but I'd like to begin with some attunement and blessing by way of invocation and some singing. And then we'll jump in, get to know each other a little bit, get oriented to our group and to the material. So let's begin. So I think everyone on this call is a Murid, and probably most of us are familiar with the invocation. And since the invocation is one of the practices, let's begin with 3 repetitions of the invocation, and we'll just make sure that everyone, great, everyone's got their oh, Nura. Okay, so not Jax, Nura. Nura, if you want to go ahead and maybe uh, mute yourself. There we go. That way everyone can say it out loud. All right. So I've been watching some of the videos, and one of the things that struck me that Wally Ollie suggested was that when we recite the invocation and we recite toward the one, that we allow ourselves to exhale and really feel ourselves surrendering, sinking into, dropping into the one. So maybe we'll do that as we begin our invocation. So let's all take an in breath together. Toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the spirit of guidance. Toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the spirit of guidance. And one more time, breathing in. Toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the spirit of guidance. Welcome, Ishtar. So I thought maybe we'd do a little singing just to kind of get our hearts tuned. So I'm gonna share a song that just popped out, but it felt so appropriate to what we're doing together. And I'm gonna play it on this little instrument, which is also quite new. Just made her a couple of months ago. It's called an Ngoni. It's a gourd with a stick and some strings. And we're going to be singing and invoking Allahu. And so in some renderings, the word Allah is translated as the only breath. And Hu is also translated in some sort of breath context. And so for today, kind of the feeling that I want to encourage is that we belong and we begin to Allah and in and within Allah, and to Hu is our return. So from breath to breath. And we're only going to be singing the words Allah and Hu. So I would invite you to just join in as you feel that you'd like to do that, or simply just listen and place your own prayers, intentions, love as we raise the pitch of our heart and send this breath full of sound toward the source. Allah, Hu, Allah, Allah, Hu, Allah, Allahu, Allahu, Allah, Allahu, Allahu, Allah, Allahu, Allahu, Allah, Hu, Allah, Allahu, 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 Allah. Let's stay on this part. Allahu, 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 May our beginning be blessed with the love of the Silsila, the timeless chain of beautiful hearts who have dedicated their lives and their breath to the pursuit of awakening. Amen. All right. I'm glad everybody could make it. My name is Jahanara, and I'm living in Boulder, Colorado. And I thought I would just take a moment and talk about my role and, a little bit of introduction. And then I'd like to actually move into introductions of everyone. So we'll give everyone maybe 5 minutes. You don't have to take up all the 5 minutes if you don't want to. But if you'd be willing to at least tell us maybe your name and where you're from and something about you, that would be fabulous. But whatever you like is fine. I guess it's my hope that together we can cultivate an atmosphere of curiosity and self-compassion, ease and joy, so that we can go deeper into these teachings. And I will do my best to serve as a mentor for this. Um, I'm not teaching per se in this role. My main job, I think, is to facilitate a space that feels safe, um, a space where we can explore and share. So it's not really a class, it's a support group for the material that each one of us has access to. So I'm a resource to be used however this group would like. I can lead practices, I can help people find where the resources are. I'm always here if you want to reach out if you have a question that doesn't get answered during our time together. Um, I think this whole thing about navigating the resources can be a little challenging for those of you who've looked through them. There's a lot there, and there's a lot of different things there. And so we're going to go through some of that after we do some introductions. So really is to make sure that everyone in our circle is set with all the materials and understands where things are and how to use them and how to access them. And then if there's questions about any of the practices, any of the readings, I've talked to a small handful of people who have been or who are mentors for this program, and they all do things quite differently from one another. And I've gotten a lot of interesting suggestions. Some people have suggested that they've recorded themselves reading the readings so that for people who don't like to read, they could simply listen. That's something that's an option. There's all kinds of things. We could do extra practice sessions. It's really whatever is going to support people in this group the most. Yeah, so that's a little bit about what I think my role is. I'd love to have everyone, by the show of their hand, I think it'd be good to us agreeing that this is going to be a safe space, and whatever is shared in this space stays in this space. So if that feels good and safe and doable by everybody, if I could just see a raise of your hand, that would be fabulous. Wonderful. Okay. And if there's anything else along the way that people need or want to feel comfortable, please bring that to my attention or bring it to the group's attention. The thing that's so wonderful about the group is that each one of us can go through all this material. It's all there for us. There's nothing that I have that's hidden from you or that's extra. But the fact that we get to do it together, that we can ask questions and we can share our experiences, it allows us, I think, to be able to go deeper into the material than we would if we were doing it just by ourselves. So once we really get going into the program, there might be times when I ask different people in the group to choose the practice that they'd like to do with the group, if either they want to lead it or they would like me to lead it. In some groups, the mentor ends up sort of facilitating and choosing everything, and I can do that and I'm fine to do that, but I really kind of have this vision that it will be a co-created journey. So, please speak up, please ask for what you want, and we will find a way to accommodate for that. Any questions about any of that so far? If you do have a question, just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask. So I think what I'd like to do now, I'll say maybe a couple more words about myself, and then I'm going to open it up and invite others to share and introduce themselves. So the reason I'm doing this now is because someone asked me to do it, and it felt like a huge yes on my part. I was part of the very first group that did this course back in something like 2000, I think it was, where they sent out CD-ROMs and printed material. And so it was very sort of antique back then. And honestly, I think I kept up with it through about the seventh or eighth month, and then I just sort of fell off because there was no group component. There was no ability to interface or interact with anybody at that point. So I'm really excited to experience it again in a different iteration and with the support of a group. Like I said, I live here in Boulder, and probably the thing to know about me right in this moment is I have a rib out, so I'm having some trouble breathing, taking deep breaths, which felt really like an interesting thing to have happen right before we start this this concentration on the breath. So I've already been having some really wonderful opportunities. Uh, yeah, I'm a teacher, musician, artist, and just really enjoy being in group. So thank you for choosing this group. And let's, Shahida, would you be willing to go next? And I'll time it. Everybody can have 5 minutes, and whenever the timing is up, if you're still talking, maybe I'll just play the Ngoni or something, just a few little notes.
Hi, I'm Shahida and I live in Maine. Um, I've been on the Sufi path for, I don't know, like 30 years and I over the like past 2 years have gotten re-engaged in it. So when something pops up that is interesting, I listened for that internal yes. And so I signed up and I was like, oh, I should probably know more about what I'm getting myself into. I'm not always one of those people that just leaps without looking, but sometimes I do. And so it's really great to have group support. Um, my the woman who initiated me into the Sufi order and into the healing order and a few other things. Her name was Kahira Kalbi, and she's no longer on the planet, but she always said that the breath is the answer to everything. And she's like, just figure out the breath and you've got it. It's like, okay, that's a big thing, but okay, thanks. So I guess it is time to just dive into it from a different perspective. And I think that's good for me for right now.
All right.
Short
Wonderful.
and sweet.
Short and sweet. That's fine. How about, let's see here. How about Ruth Mary?
Well, I live in Columbus, Ohio. I've been a spiritual searcher all my life from the time I was 11 or 12 years old, and so I've tried everything under the sun, and finally landed in what I found my tribe in my home in Sufi, probably I don't know, maybe 15, 18 years ago, and so it has been a marvelous experience for me on the Sufi path. I have had much healing. I have had much deepening. It's just I came home when I when I found the Sufi path. Um, I'm looking forward to this class because in all the practices, the practice of the breath, the elemental breaths, and any other breath practices have always been seemed to be very important to me, and it has actually helped me physically too, in my studying my breath and getting my breath in order and becoming aware of it. And so that's one of the things that drew me to this class, and I'm really looking forward to it and coming through it with all of you. And so thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Gosh, maybe we don't need the timer. All right, let's go. Maria Sophia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Sophia. I am currently in Los Angeles, California, and I was introduced to the Sufi path through my beautiful friend Nura Abigail, who's here with us as well. And like Ruth Mary, I've always been a spiritual seeker since I got here, I think. And what really resonated with me about this particular group is that I have such a resistance towards breath work of any kind. I love after the fact. When I've completed breath work, I feel amazing. And then I always say to myself, I should do this more often. I should do this more often. So breath work is something that I have resistance towards, but God is not something I have resistance towards. So I'm hoping by adding God into the breath will help me to get through that resistance and really find embodiment of the breath and incorporate it into a spiritual practice that is going to carry me and that I'm going to continue to be consistent with. So
Mm.
I'm really excited about all of, being here with all of you, and yeah, just very, very grateful.
Welcome, and welcome to all of our resistance. Latifa Tara.
My name's Kathleen Latifa Atara, and I am in the Red River Gorge of Kentucky now, and I also live in Cincinnati. And Jahanara initiated me into the Sufi path. And I guess I would have said at some time that I've always been a seeker, but what I realize now is that I've stopped seeking, because I realized there's nothing that's missing. And the seeking path is so much saying that it's not all God and that I'm not all God. And at some point, it dawns on you that there's nothing to seek, but that doesn't mean that embodiment is complete or whole. And my path, a lot of my practice has been in a Buddhist tradition. And you start following your breath, and the breath is a tool for stabilizing the mind. And I'd say that I don't meditate anymore, that using and controlling of the mind through the breath is not the point for me anymore. So it's interesting, because what I've been trying to find for myself is, how do you balance the conviction that there's nothing but the divine, and that there's no Kathleen Latifa Atara. It's just this little sort of side eddy of the divine moving through formed reality, and the habits of being a separate entity and not being very divine. And I've been a very dedicated and willful practitioner, and willfulness doesn't work. So I realized, and unlike some people, I got rid of the breath because, I can do tricks on a cushion like nobody, and I can go into jhanas and all these things, and it's really so not the point. But I have to tell you that when I asked Jahanara to initiate me, I asked her if I could be a Sufi if I did not believe in God. And God is so anthropomorphized, and particularly in a patriarchal way. So I've been a little prejudiced against the whole God thing. But love, I don't have a problem with, except that I don't know what it is. And so anyhow, I feel like this is just a perfect time for me in realizing, of course, there's the consciousness that is the Godhead, and how does that relate to the embodied Kathleen that is also here in formed reality. And it's obvious that the breath is the way. And instead of using the breath, it's time for me to allow the divine to breathe me. And I think that's what I'm hoping to really surrender to in this course. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Welcome. Jasmine.
My name is Jasmine, and I'm in Maui. I've just been back on Maui for an hour. I came from the Mendocino Sufi camp, which was fabulous. I'm looking at your notes you sent out that we could think about for our intro, what brought me to the class now. Shabda likes, we were supposed to get our guides permission, and Shabda likes the coconut wireless. So I just sent out the thing, should I take the goddess breath class? And I got back instantly through the coconut wireless. Why wouldn't you? So, and then I confirmed with him in person that was his answer. My hopes and expectations and needs. I'm dealing with aging. I know I don't look like it, but I'm 72 years old. And I sometimes, it could be low blood pressure or low blood sugar or dehydration that I feel sometimes like I'm going to faint. But I notice I haven't been paying attention to my breathing. A lot of times when I don't feel good, I notice, well, I might not have been breathing at all. So what would I like you to know about me? Well, that was pretty much for now, I think.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Zahira?
Hi. I am all the way down in South Texas in Houston. My internet is pretty unstable, so hopefully y'all can hear me. I also have a cough and a cold, and so excuse if I have to mute myself and hack. I didn't think I was going to be able to make tonight's call, but I started feeling better today. So I am very new to the Sufi path. I was just initiated this past January. Went to my first Sufi camp last fall. And I was invited by a friend who knew that I love dance. And I've also always been a very spiritual person. And I thought, dance and God and spirituality, like, yes, sign me up. And so I was hooked after Southwest Sufi Camp and the dancing and the meditation and just the community. It was just so beautiful. And I met my Sufi teacher. And so I was initiated in January. And then in February, I was diagnosed with cancer. And in March, started chemotherapy. And have learned so many lessons. And probably the biggest lesson is how disconnected I was from my body and from my breath. And so I'm very grateful that cancer came to teach me how to reconnect with my body and how to connect with my breath. Because it's been very, very helpful during chemotherapy. If any of you are familiar with the process, it's very, very challenging. And so for me to be able to practice my breath and meditation the 8-9 hours I'm hooked up to an IV has been a lifesaver. And so when this class came around, I was instantly like, yes, because I have recognized how important the breath is, and my understanding that I am not my body. I have a body, but even learning how to take care of my body in new ways, and how to use my own breath to heal my body has been just transformative. So I'm really, really excited to be here. And I love that this is an all feminine group. That's really special. I did have my last chemotherapy treatment a week ago. So for now, I'm officially complete, and I'm praying that I will never have to visit that thing again. Um, but I am still recovering, and my body is still healing, and I think that's why I came down with this cold. It's just a lot of stuff's been going on for me. So it's really helped me connect with God and my spiritual faith and belief in a much, much deeper way. Um, I like to tell people that I am just cracked wide open. That's exactly how I feel. I just feel like I am just this exposed, raw, open, gooey mess in the best, most wonderful way. So thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. All right, Nura Abigail.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nura Abigail, and I live on Lopez Island, which is in Washington State. It's up near Canada. It's pretty much the most northwest you can get without crossing the border. And I grew up on the Sufi path. My mom is a Sheikha and a Mevlevi, and her name is Asha Lila. And so I've been inside of the practices and the traditions and the mentality of this way and of this path my entire life. And I finally got over my resistance of rebelling against my mother and that path about, I don't know, 20 years ago. And I took Shabda Khan, Pir Shabda, as my mentor, as my teacher about 12 years ago. And because I've attended so many camps, especially like over 15 camps with Wali Ali and the Pacific Northwest camps, I feel like I've been in his presence and in the presence of some real carriers of the Sufi message a lot of my life. And I think I've just, I've kind of rode on that card for a long time. I've rode on the card of kind of being grandmothered into the system. And it's just occurring to me in the last couple of years that it's mine, it's my path, and that it's mine to walk. And I have not been very diligent in regards to breath work. And it's one place that I know will make a huge difference in my life. I mean, the times that I've really used breath work in the birthing of my children and in times of great pain, either physically or emotionally, it's like that's the one way that I've gotten through those moments, like through that eye of the needle. And I'd like to be able to have a different relationship with breath work, that I don't just use it in crisis, so that it's more proactive and more of an opening and more of an invitation to spirit, rather than like a desperate help me survive this kind of modality that I work with. So yeah, I've got 2 teenagers.
Wow.
And so this summer, you might, as we meet, you might hear them banging around the background. One is 17 and one is 15. And so it's kind of rowdy around here. So I need breath for that too.
Yeah.
All right, that's me. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Oh, and
Welcome.
I also, Maria Sophia and I met Janahara last year at Llama. And so that's why we wanted to be in your group. We were like, yay.
Oh, great. So we were all at Llama last year with, and Shahida was there too. Right. Okay. Right. You looked, well, I remember, I know who your mother is, and I do remember you, and now I'm remembering you too, Maria. Well, wonderful. All right, Laura Ann Ishtara. I'm a Laura Ann too.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Do you have Catholicism in your background?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So my name is Laura Ann Orishtara. I am neighbors to Ruth Mary. We're both in Central Ohio, and we dance together and learn together often, for which I'm very grateful. I am new on the path in a sense that when I meet people such as some of this group who said they've been walking the path for 30 years, wow, I'm just like, in kindergarten. I think this is my 6th or 7th year. I'm not really certain. I think I was initiated in 2018, but or 2019. So the Goddess Breath classes, my teacher's teacher was Wali Ali, and I had the opportunity to meet Wali Ali once before he transitioned, when the JK was in Ohio. So that was very early on for me, and I was able to spend an afternoon with him, but I wasn't able to attend the JK. So I'm doing this in part to connect to the lineage, my direct lineage. Also, from a very personal perspective, I've been hiding from my breath for my whole life, and I have to get to the bottom of that. It's stopping me from many things, and so here I am.
Wow. Welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Beautiful. Wow. So I think what I'd like to do is actually read directly from Wali Ali's words. Can I get a show of hands? Who's had a chance to kind of just peruse the written material? No shame. If you haven't, no worries. Okay. And then has anybody had a chance to watch either of the compilation, 90-minute compilation videos or any of the other videos? Okay, great. We have 3 months per lesson. So there's no need to force anything. I just want to kind of I just wanted to get a sense of where people were at with the material. What I did, because I'm a physical plane person, I really need, I just got a notebook and I printed out everything that was available. So I printed out the practices and assignments, the readings, the documents that show the arc of practices, the breakdown of the reorganized curriculum by lesson, the practices, just whatever there was, and I put it into a notebook. And for me, that made it so much easier to see what was going on and to kind of get a sense of the breadth of the material. And it made it a little bit less intimidating for me. So for anyone else that would be useful for, I would encourage you to do it. So on this first page of the course 1, lesson 1, practices and assignments, there's this little note from Wali Ali. And if you've watched the video, you've seen him do it live. What does it mean to be part of the Sangha, the group attunement that we're creating at the beginning of this program of classes? This is my prayer for what it will mean to all of us, myself included. May we wholeheartedly agree to study and take to heart the written materials assigned and engage in the teachings and practices on a daily basis, as well as in the midst of everyday life. It's such a powerful sentence, a couple of sentences right there. Then he says, when we forget, which of course we will, may that forgetfulness simply remind us to remember, to re-engage with our practice without self-recrimination. May we breathe a breath of unity and support for all who undertake this journey. I read that I've been reading it every day since I agreed to do this course, because I think it's a powerful thing to make an agreement, to attempt to do an everyday practice. For some of us, we've been doing this a long time. Maybe it doesn't feel quite as hard. Maybe some of us have done it a long time and it still feels hard. Maybe some of us are new to it, or maybe some of us have a lot of resistance. It doesn't matter. So I think, maybe consider where you are with that request from him. And then remind yourself that we're going to forget, we're going to miss days. We're going to miss opportunities. But when we miss, it's an opportunity to come back into remembrance, come back into the breath. And I have found it really helpful through my years of being on the path that sometimes I might forget something and it'll be right before I go to bed. And I'll just do something. It could be saying the invocation. It could be 11, Ya Gafurs. It could be 2 breaths with intention, whatever it is. But I have found that if you do something, just something, even if it's 1 breath, it keeps the momentum going in the good direction. And then you can always build from that. So one day you might practice for an hour. Wonderful. And then the next day it might be 5 minutes. But you've kept a sense of continuity, and it builds like interest in the bank account. So on that same set of pages are the practices. Walayali is suggesting basically 8 practices that we do. And I would say 5 of them are really like daily practices. So we have the practice of the Sufi invocation. We have the practice of the prayer Pir. We have the practice of Ya Rakib. That'll be the first wazifa. We have a sitting meditation practice, and then the purification breaths. And then added on to that once a week, he says, it'd be great if you would do one of the walking practices and paying attention to your breath once you're off your cushion, once you're out of your practice, as you're going through your daily rhythm, and then journaling once a week. So those are the main practices for this first section. And I would add to that the reading of the written material, and it's only 8 pages. So we have 3 months for 8 pages. So I would encourage you to just, kind of keep coming back to the reading. Maybe you read 1 paragraph or 1 section, 1 sentence. I mean, you can take it on whatever level that you want to take it on, but it's so luxurious to have the opportunity to keep coming back and going over it again and again and again, and bringing it into the meditation or the breathing practice. Bring a certain line that you find really evocative or really puzzling. So before we go any further into how to navigate the material, I think what I'd like to find out from everybody, because there are some confusing things. On some of the handouts, there are links that don't go anywhere. They go to dead drop boxes. So all that material you can get to through the Ruhaniat website, through the Goddess Breath portal, and you have all the passwords for the different sections. That's where you have to get that material. I'm going to open it up right now for any questions about navigating the material, getting to the material. Is anyone having any trouble with that?
I have a
That's-
question.
Yeah.
How many pages did you end up printing off? Is that like 300? Like,
No,
what
no,
do
no. Okay, so let me just show you.
oh, okay.
So it's not that many because every course is about somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 pages for the readings. Some are a little bit less. And then there's usually about 3 or 4 for the practices and assignments.
Okay.
So it's not huge. I
And
mean,
then
go ahead.
you had read something and I wrote down part of it and couldn't get the rest. You said something about remind us to remember.
Oh, what Wally Ali said?
Yeah, remind us to remember. And then there was something else right after that.
Remind us to remember to re-engage with our
Oh, right.
practice. Yeah.
Okay.
Without self-recrimination.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the important part, I think.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, Jasmine.
You said we have the passwords. Was that in your very informative first email?
It was.
Okay,
It's
right.
called Goddess Breath 2024. And it starts off with course 1, and it lists the YouTube recordings, the arc of practices, the resource web page, and then it'll say password. So Ya.1 Rakib is for the first. Do you see that? Okay, and that will give you the passwords for all 4 sessions, plus that final, I forget what that final one's being called. Recap, final recap. And then there's this page, which is helpful just to get a sense of the practices all the way through the 4 lessons, how they'll be built upon. So you can see the first one, it might be backwards for you guys. The first one has less writing in it, and then we get more and more and more like that. Anyone else have any questions? Oops, okay. So the YouTube channel videos are wonderful, and there are these, let's see if I can find it here. On that same handout, if you want to get to something specific, like let's say you were wanting to learn about the 20 purification breaths, there's an evening session, part 4, at 7 minutes. You can just forward all the way to that spot. So that document is the same document that I was just talking about, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's like 7 double-sided pages, so it's a lot. And the majority of it is taken up with the broken down videos into sections. This is where the walk is. This is where the dance is. This is where the whatever is. I know that I've heard there's some people that have gone through the whole course and never watched a video. That's an option. But these videos are such incredible resources for those of us that maybe didn't get a lot of time with Wali Ali. You really can feel the Baraka through the video. So I would definitely recommend them, and I would especially recommend those compilation videos because they give a broad range of practice, teachings, walks, and dance. All right. So as I said before, we have 3 months for each section, which means we have 3 meetings, 3 formal meetings for each section. And we get to figure out how our time will best serve us together. And we have some different options. We could do some practice together. We could do some reading of some of the readings. We could have sharing time. We could share around our journaling. We could do a combination of any of those things. We could watch video together, although that would mean I would have to figure out how to do that, which I'm totally willing to do. But at the moment, I don't know how to do that. But I feel like watching the video might be done better on our own. And then if we want to have some discussion around it or have some question and answer around it or something, that might be, very helpful. So I think what I'd like to hear next from people is what you feel like would be the most helpful way to use our time together and maybe to use me as well. And if you don't really mind or you just don't know yet and you want to just have us try some things, that's fine too. So if anybody feels ready to speak to that, please just go ahead and unmute yourself or raise your hand or something. Latifa, Tara?
Well, you spoiled me because there was a time when we met. Did we ever do Zikr every day of 5 days a week or something at one period with that woman abroad? Anyhow, the bottom line is I like to practice with people.
Mm-hmm.
And I would not necessarily have that be our once a month thing. I would have us think about volunteering maybe one other time or however many times we want to do, because there's a whole, it says you do this every day. Well, it's a formula. I could lead it because I can read. So I would like to practice at times with people, but I would really like a time when we are talking about our internal processes, what these practices are bringing up, what we're having difficulty with. I mean, that if it's only once a month, it could easily take up an hour and a half. So anyhow, where I am is the most important thing is to hear from people, but I like to practice. And so I'd even be willing to lead it myself or co-lead it or have another time during the month when we just did practices together.
Wonderful. Thank you. Maria Sophia?
I wanted to echo that sentiment. Practice to me is really important, especially in a group with others, and checking in to see how people are doing, if they're having any challenges, or perhaps finding ways to do the practices where it might be a little unorthodox, like splitting it throughout the day, or just some other ways or methods that people have done the practices that might be beneficial to others who are having kind of the same challenges. So I think that would be, I feel like for me, that's very beneficial rather than watching videos or reading, because that can definitely be done on your own.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Nura?
I would just agree with that. I really appreciate practicing together, but I also appreciate you holding the context of kind of what this specific practice what is it about, and kind of like layering in not just Wally Ollie's words, but also your perspective on how you've used this and kind of the sweet spot of it. Because I think that everyone has a different experience with it, and it really is helpful to hear, but I appreciate it in the context of doing it. I'm not that interested in spending the entire time listening to people's processing around it. I wouldn't mind doing the practices and then spending a little time sharing what came up while we were doing the practices, but my desire is not to have this be a therapy group. It's more like a practice group. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Shahida?
One of the things that I really like, so where I live, there's not really a super active group that I connect with. So one of the things I really love in my life is doing Zikr with other women. So I feel like even though, we have everything from like being the furthest east to the furthest west, I feel like there's a lot of power in that. And I also, as I'm listening to people say the title of the program that we're in, as it comes through my computer, it sounds like people are saying goddess breath as opposed to God is breath. And so I love that there's like that double entendre as it comes through the wires, that it's the goddess breath. Okay, so we all got that. That's great. So I also like what Nora Abigail is saying about, because I've been in your Hail Mary classes, and I always appreciate that deeper thoughtfulness that you bring to it. So I'm interested in like your insights on what and anybody's insights on what the practices are. And I also appreciate, Jahanara, that you're creating an equality by being the mentor and allowing everybody, the rest of us, to participate as it comes forth. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ruth Mary.
I agree with pretty much all of the above, but I'd just like to emphasize for me, it's very, very beneficial to practice together. There's a synergy that does something that brings a coherence to the group by practicing together. And I think that's really valuable. And then some discussion is always good too. I'm not knocking that out, but the practicing is to me is very important. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anybody else want to say anything right now? Okay, so what I think I'm hearing is definitely a desire for us to practice together, and to have check-in, to have sharing. I'm wondering, how would this sound? What if we, during our regular scheduled meetings that we've already scheduled, our focus will be practice and sort of drawing the juice, the deeper, hopefully, juice and teachings from the practices, and leaving time to share and reflect on the practices. And then what if we had one other time during the month that if people wanted to, they could come, we would do more practice, and we would create space for more sharing if people wanted to do more sharing, more reflection, or try leading or something like that. Did I hear people correctly? Could I get a show of thumbs up or thumbs down? Or looks like mostly thumbs up. And if there's anybody that feels like I missed the mark, please just speak up. Great. Well then, let's begin that way, and then it's our group. We can always fine tune it. We can always shift gears. And so I think what I'd like to do today is I'd like to do a homeopathic version of the 15-minute breath meditation we'll do it. Maybe it'll be a little bit shorter, maybe it won't. I'm not really sure. I have found this to be a wonderful practice in the sense that we're linking up our breath with the sensation of our heart, with the sensation of our heart with love, and the love with the love of Allah. I think it's a brilliant meditation because it's so simple and profound at the same time. You can take it so deep, and it links up all of these things: our breath, which is accessible to us, the sensation of our heart, which is pretty accessible to most of us, the sensation of our heart, linking it up to the feeling, the experience of love. That might be a little bit harder, but doable. And then making that next leap to feeling that love as no other than the only love that there is, delivered on the only breath that there is. So I'd like to lead us through this practice, and then if we have time, there's a few things from that first compilation, 90-minute compilation of Wali Ali, that there's just some beautiful things in there that I thought we could highlight. So since breath will be one of our primary lenses through which we'll be looking, investigating, and adjusting our view, it'll be the primary vehicle for our awakening, and that will keep kind of coming back to throughout this whole journey, this attunement to Allah, the only breath, through the rhythm of our own breathing, feels like it's one of our core practices, of the practices that they gave to us. So I would invite you to find a comfortable seat. And if it feels good to you, I would close your eyes and just begin by allowing yourself to breathe naturally. We're not asking the breath to do anything, but be itself. And then just simply noticing the rhythm of this breath. And let's let our noticing be like a loving curiosity, a loving interest in what's happening, from as neutral a place as we can muster. And very gradually, letting the breath elongate and become more refined, not by pushing it, but just inviting as we relax deeper into our breathing. Maybe we begin to notice the small pause or the turning at the top and the bottom of the breath. And we're doing this with a very light touch. Not really leaning on the breath. We're not pushing the breath. And now let's place our awareness on the magnetism that's carried by the breath. The magnetism from the rays of the sun, the waves of the air, the all-pervading life in space. It's okay to use your imagination. And as we feel this magnetism, let's place some of our awareness in our hearts so that we can begin to draw in this magnetism into the heart. As we breathe in, we feel the magnetism coming in and toward us. And as we breathe out, we radiate this magnetism to the world. And just feeling whatever arises with a gentle, loving interest. And now let's call forth all of this feeling or sensation, whatever is arising in the heart, as love. Love in and out of the heart. We don't have to understand it. Just simply feeling and breathing. And silently on the in-breath, Allah, Allah. And silently on the out-breath, Allah, Allah. And letting the mantra fill the entire length of the breath. Feeling this love, this sensation as the love of Allah, of the divine presence. Resting in the womb of the mother of silence. The breath is calling out in longing to its source, returning and birthing. As we long for Allah, Allah is longing for us. Let's take a few more breaths in this way. And then letting go of the mantra. And taking a few breaths, just breathing with the atmosphere in the heart. The sensation of the heart. And then letting go of the concentration on the heart and letting the breath return to its own natural rhythm. And for whatever has been experienced, received, imagined, we breathe in. Amen. As you're able, go ahead and open your eyes and so we have some moments for any reflection or feedback. I'm open to feedback because I'm here to serve you. So if there are ways in which I'm doing things that you would like differently, please go ahead and offer that. I'm curious if people were able to follow the thread of the natural breathing, the elongation, the feeling of the heart and the magnetism, the sensation, converting that into love or the possibility of love, and then the possibility of the love of Allah. I know it's hard sometimes to talk after a practice, but
I think doing the practices in this way, as we've previously said, are a way to just breathe life and presence into the practice that is different than watching the video resource, and can help kind of set the tone and pace for our own private incorporation.
yeah. You'll have this video, so you'll have that also. I'll send out the link to everybody. You can make your own recording. You know, I basically just took what was there as a skeleton and added a little more to it, and you all could do that for yourselves as well and share with us what you found helpful. We're all so different. Our imaginations, we all have different capacity and gifts, and we don't receive things the same way, we don't experience things the same way. One's not better than the other. For some of us, we don't see stuff, we feel things. Other people hear things. And sometimes we have to find our way to how we receive. And there's no shame in that. So feel free to ask for what you need around that. Anyone else have anything they want to reflect or share? So that was practice number 3. Nope, practice number 4. Practice number 4. And he says in here, start with 5 minutes and gradually build up to 15. I think we did like 10 minutes or something. So if you're having a day where you're struggling with your breath, do it for a minute, do it for 5 minutes. If you have a day where your breath is really, the swing of your breath is very free and it's so delicious, do it for more. I think one of the things I love about this practice is sometimes God, Allah, the sacred presence, the goddess, feels so far away, feels so large, feels like such a big deal. But he, she, they are so close as our breath. And I think as we train ourselves more and more that this access point of the breath, where we're breathing and being breathed by the holy being, it breaks down those boundaries that I think a lot of us, especially if you've grown up in a religion, there's so much rigidity. Well, only the priest has access, or only the rabbi, or only people that are really spiritual and really holy and have done all the doodahs. No, anybody who's breathing has access. So I would remind us to be very gentle, be very, I'm sure we all have desires and expectations of how we would like to have intimacy with the holy. It's a journey. And sometimes it's more about surrendering than about thinking that we know. Wally Ali says, we surrender to beauty willingly and power unwillingly. What in God do we find beautiful? Can we investigate? How can we loving surrender? Can we investigate how we might lovingly surrender to some aspect of the holy that's beautiful to us? How can we hear love calling us into communion, into unity? Can we have the desire to find the place where we can awaken this kind of desire to attune to the one whom we can imagine? The more we can imagine these qualities of Allah, the more they become activated within us, and we realize that we are not separate from them. And so it is the breath that gives the heart a greater scope to operate. So by using these practices of the breath with rhythm is the secret. In that same video, Wally Ali talks about this, the burning bush that Moses comes across when he's shepherding on Mount Horeb, says Aya Asher Aya. And the usual translation is I am that I am. And Wally Ali offers this other possibility, and I can't remember who he attributes it to, the eternal movement of the only being made audible. So in a way, our breath is doing a similar thing, that if we have the ears to hear, we might actually hear the holy through the breathing of our own breath. We don't have to go to Mount Horeb or anywhere else. Let's see what else he says here. The breath is the vehicle of our awakening to the many different realms. The breath is a vehicle of connection between the inner and outer worlds and of the various planes of vibrations. The breath is an oracle. To experience these things, we must develop our breath by using our breath to connect to the God reality. As a Sufi, we use the path of this loving connection to the source as the vehicle of our growth and awakening. Such a beautiful way to describe the Sufi path, an aspect of the Sufi path. One of the things I do when I begin my practice is I ask that my breath and my energy be plugged into that source. I can't remember who told me this. It was a long time ago. I don't even think it was somebody in our Sufi lineage. They said, well, if you want those things, you have to ask for them. The Holy doesn't just do them automatically. I mean, that's a little, whatever. Take it with a grain of salt. But there is something about ask and ye shall receive. So before we do these practices, maybe we take a moment and we ask. And sometimes I even just visualize like a little plug, like my little soul plug, plugging into the higher power, into the silsila. The silsila, all those who've gone before us are there waiting for us to ask for their support. Allah's there waiting. It certainly can't hurt. And then that spiritual electricity has been asked to enter our hearts. And so it becomes more accessible to us and automatically puts us into a type of intimacy that only flowers as we continue the path. So do we think that it would be the most ease-filled attempt to find a date to do through email if I put out maybe 2 or 3 different options that would work for me, and then if we find one that works for everybody, hopefully, or the majority of people, and then I think we can probably even just use the same Zoom link because it's the same Zoom link for everything. Does that seem reasonable? So I'll try to find a time like sort of halfway in between our times. That way it'll sort of feel like we're meeting every couple weeks, something like that. So as I'm looking at these practices, we have the elemental breaths, we have Ya Rakib. I think we could probably very easily go through all of these practices in a session. The Sufi invocation, the prayer of Pir, the Wazifa Ya Rakib, the purification breaths, that meditation, and I can kind of change it up a little bit with that meditation, and we'll just kind of go through all of them, and then if there are certain times where we feel like we want to put more attention on to one or the other, that could be good. I think do it for a little bit longer period of time, like we would do on a retreat or something. So we have 3 main meetings one per month. The other thing we could do is we could focus on longer practices and try to do maybe 3 of them a time. So I don't think we can lose by doing any of that. But I think what I'll do is if people want to get a hold of me individually and say, I was thinking about it, I think this could be really good or that could be really good, it kind of would help me. But if I hear from people, that'd be great. If I don't hear from people, I think what I'm going to plan on doing is for our next monthly meeting, doing either all 5 of those practices or the majority of them, and then leaving time to have reflection after each of them, and then a little bit of time for general reflection of practice that you're doing at home. And then we'll save the majority of that kind of reflection for that next meeting, which happens in between the monthly meetings. Does that seem good? Okay. I know we have 9 people. I want to make sure everyone's needs get met, and hopefully we'll mostly do that. So let's see here. We've got, it's 6:30, so we're done. I will go ahead and send out an email with the dates. And I also want to, I mean, how do people feel about the readings? There's some juicy stuff in these readings. I didn't pull anything from the readings, I just pulled from the video. I could pull some things from readings if people wanted, or I could just pull, I could make one of the practices one section of reading that I feel like is particularly juicy. I mean, I know we all have access to them, but yeah, were you going to say something, Nora?
I was just going to say, I think it's wonderful to hear what catches your attention, partly because you're familiar with this work, and I think it interests me. So I would love that.
All right. And then if anybody wants to do any sharing in their sharing time related to the reading, that's also great too. And we can, you know, read a section of it during that time or whatever. Great. Well, I think we have a plan. I think we have a path. I'm really excited about this. I'm so delighted to meet those of you that I've not met yet, and it's wonderful to see all of you that I know and that I have met. Like I said, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks and definitely in a month. And let's end. I know we're like a minute off. If you have to leave, then you can leave. But I was just gonna have us read through Peer, the prayer Peer. I'm just relearning it again because I haven't said it in a while. So I'm gonna just read it, and we can sort of take that in, and then we'll end. Inspirer of my mind, consoler of my heart, healer of my spirit. Your presence lifts me from earth to heaven. Your words flow as a sacred river. Your thought rises as a divine spring. Your tender feelings awaken sympathy in my heart. Beloved teacher, your very being is forgiveness. The clouds of doubt and fear are scattered by your piercing glance. All ignorance vanishes in your illuminating presence. A new hope is born in my heart by breathing your peaceful atmosphere. Oh, inspiring guide through life's puzzling ways, in you I feel abundance of blessing. Amen. So just one thing, this is both the outer source of guidance and teaching as well as the inner. All right, everybody, lots of love. Mwah.